Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. So this is another faceless video because this literally just flew into my DMs on Instagram and I thought to myself, wow, this is messy, this is deep. So insiders have leaked allegedly, and this is all alleged, that Harry basically made quite a few racially fueled comments towards our dear lovely Dr. Sophie, and he also made quite a few misogynistic comments in her presence. And of course we know that this is true. There's some validity to this because of course she has gone to the High Court in the UK and the High Commissioner to have the charitable practices of Sentebale investigated as we speak, because she felt as though there was corruption, misogyny and racism going on within the organisation. So I've looked at a few of the trustees and it's a mixture of African men, of course, and European men. There was very much a comradeship amongst the male members of the charity, and they seem to have all kind of stuck together and sided against her. Now, as it had been divulged that when she took the control of the charity and became the chairman, or the new chair of the board, so to speak, there was a bit of an uprising and an uproar, and they wanted her to actually stand down, and she refused because she felt as though she's acting in the interests of the people, the authentic interests of the people, to continue her job as a charitable endeavour and represent those who are in sore need of the funding that was meant to be going towards the aid projects that Sentebale supports in Africa. But of course we know that corruption, misogyny and racism was rampant and rife behind the closed doors of this charity, and they were at each other's throats. Now, my source has basically leaked to me that not only was there corruption going on, Dr. Sophie Chandakua also encountered quite a lot of hostility on her path, and especially after she met the Duchess of Sussex, Meghan Markle. So allegedly, and I'm sure you've seen this clip of her and Meghan kind of jostling to find a spot in this photo op after Harry had won his polo match. They was both holding the trophy, her and Harry. Now, allegedly, my source has leaked that essentially Meghan was extremely intimidated and insecure in the presence of Dr. Sophie because she has many credits to her name. So I've done a bit of digging and background work, and Sophie is an extremely intelligent woman, and she's a very highly esteemed woman, not just educationally but amongst her peers, at least those who like, support and respect black women and women in general. So she's highly educated. Sophie Chandakua is a Zimbabwe-born corporate finance lawyer, entrepreneur and head of America's risk management and intelligence at Meta. Previously, Chandakua was global COO of shared services and banking operations at Morgan Stanley, based in New York, and prior to this she was CAO of the Legal and Compliance Division of Morgan Stanley in EMEA, based in London. In 2021, at the Queen's Birthday Honours, she was awarded an MBE for services to diversity in business. So her formal name she goes by is Dr. Sophie Chandakua MBE. So she has an MBE for her own merits, which of course is something that Meghan really doesn't like, and she tends to cage up around other highly esteemed women who have, through their own merits, not just because of the man that they are bedding at night, have had access and met the Queen or met someone like Diana, and she always feels very inferior and insecure around them. She was extremely insecure and jealous of Catherine, and this feud that she was having basically by herself has continued on against our poor Princess Catherine, who has literally just beaten cancer, bless her beloved soul. And so she done everything to try and structurally tear that woman from limb to limb. Now you will see pictured here that there will be an image of when Meghan saw Drew Barrymore as a little girl on her show, and she pulled out the picture of her meeting Princess Diana and handing her an ET doll, and how frosty and upset Meghan seemed and intimidated she seemed. So nonetheless has gone on here. This lady has high esteem. So it was alleged, and this is alleged, that there seemed to be some kind of at least misguided perception that maybe Harry had an attraction because of this lady's merits, but he himself also was intimidated by everything that she had achieved. The source has leaked that at one point or another, when these three were in personal company, Harry did actually say, yes, I believe, quote unquote, girls should have books, but some have had access to too many books. So that's interesting. I'm not sure in what specific context that happened, but what I do know is this. During the polo match, after the polo match, in fact, after we saw that awkward scramble for centre stage, whereby looking at it now from what I could see, Meghan did not want Sophie to stand anywhere next to Harry. And I read it in that way. I watched it quite a few times and I thought to myself, why was she so dead set on saying, no, come over here, come over here? And she kind of beckoned her 3 or 4 times, like, I'm not moving. You're not going to stand anywhere next to my husband. I feel intimidated. I don't want him next to you, and so on and so forth. Now, Sophie is a very voluptuous, shapely woman. She's petite, but she has the curves in all the right places that Rachel doesn't have. I mean, I'm just going to leave it there. So this source leaked that allegedly after that altercation, Sophie felt quite demeaned and intimidated, but she decided to brush that aside and have a private word with the Duchess. So allegedly she went over and she beckoned Meghan over for a private chat, and she took her to the side of the conference room, I believe, where they was having an afternoon lunch slash tea, and she essentially wanted to, at least that's what she said, was going to address, she said this amongst other colleagues, she was going to address the altercation and how she didn't like it. You know, she's achieved a lot in her life and she didn't like being demeaned and belittled in such a way. Now, I believe, to be honest with you, she probably had been experiencing quite a lot of things, and there was probably quite a few events and moments and comments that were made that led up to her at this point just saying, do you know what, I've had enough of this. I'm not going to sweep it under the rug because she happens to be now the Duchess or she happens to be Sparry's wife. I'm going to tell her directly from woman to woman and ask her the question, what's going on? So allegedly in the back room where these two ladies kind of jostled and had this exchange, Meghan departed from her, face as white as a sheet, and she allegedly pushed Sophie. You know when you're kind of like walking down the road and someone rude comes along and they kind of don't acknowledge your existence, they kind of push you and they kind of shoulder you. So I've actually had people go out of their way to kind of like shoulder me. I mean, it doesn't happen often. I mean, there aren't that many bad apples in the world, but allegedly she kind of pushed her and left Dr. Sophie Chandakua stunned, completely stunned. So that's where the tension actually, it seems, begun. At least that was maybe, the first part of the escalation of her relations with the Sussexes dwindling to the point where we literally have her basically saying in no uncertain terms, I have had enough of the Sussex mess. As she said here in her own personal statement against Senator Barley, quote unquote, then play the victim card and use the very press they disdain. She hit out in a volley of accusations, and she said, for me, this is not a vanity project from which I can resign when I am called to account. And she talked about, I'm an African of world class, with world class education and career, and I will not be intimidated, and I will stand for those other women who do not have the ways and means. I mean, the truth of the matter is there's no smoke without fire. My source also continued on to talk about the misogynistic, racially fueled comments that Sophie had to endure while she was a member of the charity, and as she became to assume quite a powerful, significant position in the charity. But I think I should put that in a separate video because a lot of people just want it short and sweet. And I'm going to conclude it there. Let me know your thoughts. Tell me what else you want me to cover. I will be back with another one. Until then, take care, guys.